Now we've had our fun. I want to maybe challenge you a little bit today. All right, as we talk about the land in between, because pre-pandemic world is gone. I think we can all agree on that. We're still waiting to find out what post-pandemic world is, right? The good news is I feel like we're getting close to being done with the land in between, all right? But here's some things that I think that I'm processing and I just want to share with you all today. Pre-pandemic disability ministry, and I'm generalizing here, all right? I'm not saying this is what Southeast is or does or did, but I'm generalizing based on what I see out there. Pre-pandemic disability ministry basically is what happens inside the walls, physical walls of a church, all right? Not necessarily every church, not necessarily Southeast, but typically it's a field of dreams type of ministry. We've built it. We want you to come to what we've established, all right? That's in general how disability ministry kind of structured pre-pandemic. All right, in the land in between, and I want you guys to know, as a bit of an encouragement, you guys are an exception to the norm, okay? From talking with Mary and Garrett, they're saying, most of the adults are back already, which is awesome. You got a good portion of the children are back. But in the land in between, on average, with churches that I've talked to, work with, they're seeing about 20 to 40% engagement from pre-pandemic numbers, all right? Incredibly low. We're talking about churches that have either said, you know what, we're going to wait till it's over till we do anything. There's a church that I talked to in California a week ago that said, we're going to wait until the week after Easter to start something. And I'm like, the week after Easter in 2020? They're like, no, like this year. So I'm like, you haven't done anything for 14 months? So there's churches on that end of the spectrum. There are churches that haven't shut down at all. And then there's everybody else in between. All right. But on average, from what I'm talking to churches, seeing about 20 to 40% engagement during the land in between, right? So that's not very much. So that means that 60 to 80% of people are saying, I'm not ready to come back yet. I'm comfortable doing church on my couch, or I'm comfortable not doing church, right? So that's 60 to 80% of people. And again, the good news for you is you're an exception to the norm of what I've seen, as you guys have had a lot of engagement, and that's props to you guys. It's props to your leadership here as a church. But what I want you to understand is this statement: your flock is your flock, right? God has entrusted you to be the shepherd of a flock of people here in the Louisville area, all right? And whether it's 50% of your people have returned and 50% of your people haven't returned, it doesn't matter their location. The fact of the matter is they're still your responsibility, because your flock is your flock no matter where they are. Again, this kind of flies in the face of pre-pandemic ministry as we think about our people are here and they're who comes to us. But this isn't how Jesus designed it, right? In Luke 14:21, we see Jesus say this as part of the parable of the great banquet. He says, go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor and the disabled. The yellow is my edits there. This is Jesus' command. Jesus' command, he recognizes that a majority of the poor and the disabled aren't inside the walls of the church. He's commanding church leadership here to go out quickly and to find the poor and the disabled and bring them into the church, because he recognizes that they're not there. So I think as we look at the land in between, as we look at the fact that our flock is our flock no matter where they are, a lot of them have returned here, which is great, but not everybody's returned. And even those that have yet to return and those that are considering maybe not returning, they're still our responsibility. And Jesus has called us to go out quickly and bring them back in, okay? So here's the challenge for you. It's this. I believe God is calling some of you to do more or to do things differently. All right, I'm going to say that again. I believe God's calling some of you to do more than you're doing now, or to do things differently than you're doing them now. Okay? I believe that with all my heart. And I love the fact that this church uses this type of language, and this is part of your DNA already. It's important to you guys that you reach people one at a time. You've got a giant wall downstairs that says one at a time, right? You've made an initiative to unleash your people, right? Your church is talking about unleashing you. Well, unleashing you to do what? To bring in one at a time. As you think about those that have yet to return, those should be some of the names and the faces that you're thinking about bringing back to the church, okay? And there's another phrase that I love about your disability ministry leadership here, and it's this: empowering volunteers. They want to empower you to do the ministry and the work of the church, because you're not just a volunteer, you're a minister. You are a minister of the gospel, of good news, right? And they want to empower you, to unleash you to reach one at a time, to bring back in those people that have yet to return, because your flock is your flock no matter where they are, okay? This isn't always easy, right? We have examples of people groups that have navigated the land in between. We specifically, and we're going to look at this a little bit, have the Israelites. They spent 400 plus years in slavery in Egypt, but God had called them to the promised land. And you know the story. They got stuck in the land in between for 40 years. They were navigating this. God was calling some of them to be different, to do something new. God never takes us through the process of going from one point to another point without the purpose of changing us. Okay? God would never say, I want the same person that exists in comfort of being a slave to want to still be a slave here. God takes us on a journey to change us. And that's why I believe God is calling some of you to do more or to act differently. But that's not always easy, right? And we know that from the Israelites. And I'll give you a few examples of some of the committees, if they were forming church committees during the land in between for the Israelites. The first committee is the I Can't Do It committee. All right, and some of these things, as I'm telling you, God's calling you to do more or do things differently, you may resonate with some of these things because this was Moses before they ever even left. And he's the head of the I Can't Do It committee, because in Exodus chapter 4, he disqualifies himself with God and says, I got this speech impairments. I can't be the leader of the Israelites. I can't be who you called me to be. And you may be thinking the same thoughts as I'm telling you, God wants you to do more. God wants you to do things differently. Because you might say, God could never use me. I'm not smart enough. I'm not experienced enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I just got out of school. Ministry will just have to find somebody else that's more qualified than me. That might be your default as I tell you, God wants you to do more or different. There's another committee. It's called the Go Back to Egypt committee. All right, this is Exodus 16. The Israelites have run out of food. They're hungry. They are upset. And they decide that, you know what? We want to go back to Egypt. We're more comfortable being slaves in Egypt because we know that at least we get food. What a miserable, miserable thought, right? But when I tell you that God's calling you to do more or different, you might feel like, well, I can't do that. I want to wait until church goes back to normal before I get more involved or too involved. That might be the feeling that you have. And so many of us, myself included, have uttered this phrase: can't wait till we go back to the way things were, or I can't wait till things are normal again. Unfortunately, that ship has sailed. Normal's not coming back. Our world has changed. Our churches have changed. God is in the process of changing us. And so sometimes difficult and uncomfortable, there's purpose to it. And we can't go back because we'll never find the way it used to be. All right, the next committee is the I'm tired of waiting committee. You might resonate with this. This is Exodus 32, when the Israelites get tired of waiting for Moses. When he's up on the mountaintop, he's hanging out with God, and he's taking too long getting the 10 Commandments. And what do the Israelites do? They're like, can't wait for him anymore. Aaron, come over here, make us a new God that we can worship, and that will lead us into the promised land. And they make the God of the golden calf, right? One of my most favorite stories, because Moses comes down and grinds it up and makes them drink it, and they all get sick, and like 1,400 of them die. Just a wonderful story. But seriously, we've done a lot of waiting. We're tired of waiting for this to be over, all right? And some of us, and some of your people, have gotten comfortable with the whole church from home thing. Sitting on the couch, watching church from home is kind of nice, right? And some of your people are saying, I didn't miss church at all, and I've replaced it with something else, kind of that golden calf type of thing. And those where some of your people are at that have chosen not to return, that Jesus desires that you go out quickly and bring back in, okay? Here's one more committee. It's the too big and scary committee. This is Numbers 13, when 10 of the 12 spies that Moses sends out comes back when they've been into the promised land. They've looked at the giants and they've freaked out. And they're like, we can't compete with those giants. They'll kill us. And this is why they get stuck they get stuck in the desert, in the land in between for 40 years, because they didn't have faith. All right? And you might resonate with that as I tell you, God wants you to do more and wants you to do things differently. And you might say, COVID is scary enough. Don't dare ask me to do something new. It's just not worth the risk. There's some of that mentality out there. So there's a lot of negative committees, right? When you're navigating this space where God's calling you to do more and to be different. But there is good news, right? Because there's one more committee that I want to tell you about. And it's the Be Strong and Courageous committee, because 2 of the 12 spies didn't agree with the 10 that said it's too scary. It's Joshua and Caleb. They disagree, and they push Moses to continue with God's plan. They have faith that it's worth it to move forward, even though it's scary. And it is scary when we're navigating the land in between. And they'd be on this committee. They'd be they'd say, I'm willing to do anything short of sin to reach the lost for Christ. Sign me up for anything. I'm willing to try because the need is so great. And this is where I hope you'll end up, as I challenge you to do more and to do things differently, because our world has changed. The faithfulness of just 2 people delivered the entire nation of the Israelites into the promised land. Many didn't get to go, but Joshua got to lead them because of his faithfulness. All right? So as we are navigating the land in between, as we are thinking of things that we should consider, as I'm telling you that God is calling you to do more and maybe do things differently, as we think about the fact that we don't have our full flock back yet, as we have much of our flock not here are some things to consider. All right? And I know you're doing this already, and I'm encouraged by this. Adopt a hybrid approach to what you're doing. You're doing things in the building. Don't stop doing online things. Do them simultaneously. Have your live streams, so those that have yet to return can continue to be a part of what you're doing when you're in here, and continue to do the online groups. I know we're tired of online, but for those that have yet to return, they need that as to be included. All right? Here's another thing that I want to challenge you with. I want you to consider the names of those who have yet to return as more important than the numbers that you have that have returned. All right? Now that may not sound right. You might say, well, how can we consider those that have yet to return more important than those that are here? But think about the parable of the one lost sheep. Was it not more important than the 99? That the shepherd left the 99 to go get that one? So I want you to consider that. As you've gotten most of your people back, it should be easy for you to identify the names of those who have yet to return. And you should prioritize extending God's love and God's care and God's grace to them, and encouraging them to come back, not necessarily because it's because it's what Jesus desires. He wants everyone to be in God's family. All right. I also want you to consider this, that ministry is bigger than Sunday morning. And I say that in general because I know you've got Saturday night, you've got Sunday morning, you've got Thursday nights now. You keep adding to your menu. But ministry is bigger than any time you have programming in the building. All right. And that's super, super important to consider. So in all of these new things, as I've been telling you, God is challenging you to do more and maybe differently. It might be time to revamp some of the volunteer positions. I asked Garrett about a week or two ago, send me all your volunteer positions. So I've got a list of them. And I've decided, they may not know this yet, I've decided to come up with 9 new volunteer positions. So, and they're gasping. They're like, wait, what? So I have 9 new volunteer positions complete with job descriptions if you're interested in any of them. And I'm asking you to think about doing more. So maybe it's not even something that's officially sanctioned. Maybe it's just something that God's called you to and you're just saying, I'm going to do that. Let me show you the 9 real quick and just kind of give brief descriptions to it. So I'm sorry. I'm making more work for you. Have an online host. I know you guys are live streaming some of your stuff that you're doing already. And I don't know if you already do this or not, but you do? Okay. All right. So check. Moving on. All right. The next position I'd like to call the operator. For some of us older folks, we understand there used to be an operator on the other side of the phone, right? You'd pick up and they'd patch you through. It's the old-fashioned phone thing. But the operator is someone who makes routine phone calls, text messages, social media messages, saying hello and just checking in. I tell you what, the power of hearing someone's voice is so important. It's more important than a text. Hearing somebody's voice is powerful. And some of you are good at connecting and checking in. And you should make that part of your calling, to check in on those names that have yet to return. All right? The next thing is the snail mailer. All right? Just as powerful as the voice is the power of a handwritten note. All right? And I know you guys have done some of these things, and because I've heard from Jason about how people have written cards and dropped them off, and you guys have mailed them out. But specifically target those who have yet to return. Routinely send them handwritten encouragement cards, birthday cards, holiday cards, etc. Some of you are really good at being an encourager. Add this to the menu of what you do. Once a month, send a handwritten card. All right? I just called this one friends. Think Sunday morning buddies, but think outside the box of the church. Think of a buddy that is intentionally paired for friendship and discipleship, that goes out once a month, that goes bowling, that goes, I don't know what you do in Louisville here, that goes to the bat factory. I don't know what you do here. So, but that's just friends. And that's not something that you have to program. It's just who you are. All right, so let's go to another one. Prayer team. This kind of old-fashioned ministry here. The prayer team intentionally prays for the needs of families and the ministry at large, specifically those families that have yet to return. You'll notice a theme in some of these things. They're almost all done outside of the walls of the church. So nobody's competing for volunteers. Nobody's fighting for volunteers. Nobody's saying, oh my gosh, I got to get my volunteer needs met here on Sunday morning. All right, next thing is the connector. This is for all of you that are really good with social media, being online, checking things out. You're the go-between for community events and opportunities and the volunteer base at large. You're finding out what's going on in the disability community, the Special Olympics events, all of these different things that are happening. You've got a pulse on all of it, and you're relaying all the different opportunities for volunteers to connect in your community. You're not the one doing it, but you're letting everybody know about what is available out there. All right, here's another old school, but good stuff, the baking squad. All right, specifically thinking of the people who have yet to return. What if once a month you made something for them? You baked something for them. and delivered that to them, which means you have to have a delivery team, right? Some people aren't good at baking. That's okay. Some people are good at, driving cars, I guess. I don't know. My wife would tell me I'm not the greatest. We ate last night at Smoky Bones, and I took a picture of my car in the parking lot, and I texted it to my wife because I was only maybe 2/3 in the space, and then at least a third in the next space, and didn't even realize it. So I would not be good for the delivery team because I apparently don't pay attention while I'm driving. So, but there are people that need to deliver the goods. All right, and then the fixer-upper position is just like what you think of it as the operator is making phone calls and finding out some of the practical needs that people have in their homes. Fixer-upper is a person, it's a guy or a girl that's good at just fixing things, right? So they go to the home and fix things for people. So those are some positions. And again, I've got complete job descriptions there. I believe God's calling you to do more or to do things differently in addition to what you're doing now, because God has shifted and changed kind of the landscape of ministry. As we navigate the land in between, he doesn't want you to come out the other side the same person. And he desires greatly that you reach those who have yet to return and to bring them in to God's family. That's my challenge for you. Chew on it and then bother those two in the back of the room about how you're going to reach some of those who have yet to return as you identify those people. All right. Thanks, guys.